Welcome back to the Michigan Football Network, and today is a bit of a special day for NFL fans as it is the NFL trade deadline. Unfortunately, though, the Lions didn't do anything. As we all know, I'm sure a lot of fans are upset about that. But there are reasons for it that we will talk about in a little bit. Before we get to that, though, there's a couple things that we just want to kind of get out of the way. So. Obviously, we signed that offensive lineman from New England to our practice squad, which, okay, we're that's something, but not really what we were looking for today. Um, but I mean, I do think releasing those two guys, like we were just talking about off air, obviously, but releasing those two guys, just we still have a spot remaining, and I'm not gonna say like obviously we can't make a trade at this point, but I think we should be looking for maybe a player to get released, or even a guy to just get added from free agency to the active roster. Because we covered in an article last week a couple guys that are available right now in free agency that might have had down years last year or whatever the case, or they're a little older. But I mean, they were pretty damn good players in their prime, and obviously we're not talking about getting them in their prime, but if we can get them, to the point where they're at least starter level, I don't think it would be that hard with these guys. And then, of course, when Mahogany comes back, he just comes right back and starts again. But also, Miles Frazier could be coming back, which he tweeted, somewhat perfect timing, I'm going to say, because it was right as the deadline passed and he tweeted praying hands. So that likely means he's probably going to be back pretty quick. And Dan Campbell did mention, we're going to get some good players back from injury soon. So, with that being said, I think we can calm down a little bit. But is there anything you want to add before we go to our next point?
Uh, no, sorry, I'm still scrolling through X over here on another tab, and the amount of Lions fans losing their mind is kind of incredible. That's all I was gonna say. We can move on to the next segment.
Oh yeah, it is. I kind of expected it, of course, but it's one of those things. It always annoys me a little bit because it's just like, guys, you kind of have to expect it at this point. Brad Holmes literally never does what you want him to do, and it's worked out for us in the past. So I think it's one of those things where obviously I'm a little upset, but it's like, yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm not gonna judge, based off one thing when we don't have the full body of work, I guess you can say for this instance, but with that being said, in terms of trade deadline, I think the Lions didn't make a move simply because, well, a few things. Asking price. I mean, who knows what these guys were asking? Offensive line is not really a position that gets traded very often. I mean, we've only had seven of them get traded since 2002, and I don't know what the number is on this, but I'd be curious to know how many of those guys were even starters because most of the time if you have an offensive lineman who's pretty good, you're not going to trade him because they're hard to find. If they're, a fringe guy, sure, you might move him for like a 6 round pick or something like that. But you normally don't see, like how we saw Laramie Tunsil get dealt twice. You normally don't see stuff like that. So, with that being said, I'm not that surprised we didn't go get an offensive lineman, although that is our biggest need at this point. But I'm a little surprised we didn't go get an edge rusher or a defensive back. Just simply because we were kind of rumored to be in talks with teams for a week leading up to today, if not longer than that, on getting more, defensive line and defensive back depth, or at least, I mean, if not depth, maybe even a starter, possibly, depending on who we traded with, or traded for, I should say. But with that being said, I'm not that surprised at the same time that we didn't make a move. I mean, simply because that's kind of Brad Holmes' MO. We're going to go with who we got in the building, and if those guys can't go, we're going to try to add somebody off the street. He doesn't really like to give, which honestly I find odd. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I agree with this, because look, he traded 3 third round picks to move up to get Tesla. I mean, you're trading three Jalen Phillips essentially, if we're talking value, to go get a wide receiver who has 3 catches for us this year. Now, am I going to sit here and say it's a bad move? No. Did I love the value, or do I love the value? No, I didn't love it when it happened. But it's one of those things that confuses me. Like, you're willing to do that for a guy you don't even know if he's going to be good, because he was a project coming out of college anyway. I mean, we knew that. But you're not willing to go trade a sixth round pick for somebody that could help us right now today as we try to make a Super Bowl push. That I don't get very much personally. But again, it's not anything I'm going to, you know, kill Brad Holmes over. It's like, okay, we're going to see what happens, see what moves he makes. Miles Frazier, if he comes back, he'll be the left guard. I mean, that's what we drafted him for. And we all loved Miles Frazier when we drafted him. So I just don't find it that crazy. Now, like I said, the edge rusher, the DB thing, that kind of confuses me a little bit. We'll see. Maybe, I mean, not maybe. They know something we don't know, as always. So, with that being said, that's really, my 2 cents on why they didn't go make a move. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just don't think the average fan and Brad Holmes think about football the same way. I think most fans want that big splash guy, that Sauce Gardner, that big name, that blue chip guy, and want to go all in because, I mean, that's fun. Who wouldn't want that? In short-sightedness. But Brad Holmes never thinks short-sighted. He would rather have a 4 to 6 year window would have a chance for multiple seasons than just push all the cards in and say it's this year or bust. And whether you agree with that or not is obviously up to you and your thought process, but that's what Brett Holmes is doing. So I don't think even 2 years from now, I don't think he's going to ever do that giant move that some people want him to do.
Yeah, and I mean, the closest thing we really saw to it recently was last year was Zadarius Smith, which we all wanted Zadarius Smith. And I think that kind of spoiled us a little bit to this year. Now people are pissed because he didn't do what we wanted because we got what we wanted last year. But I think that was just one of those things like, dude, that was so obvious. It's like Hutchinson went down for the season. We're a Super Bowl team. We are winning every week. And it was like, look, man, there's somebody available for what was a 5th round pick that,
Yeah, I think it was a fifth.
yeah, that can come in. He has multiple sacks on the season. He's not Hutchinson, but he's a pretty damn good player. Let's add him to the group and see what happens. And then obviously we cut him, which again, still I don't know about, but it is what it is because now he's retired, so I understand it in that sense. But in terms of the player that he was for us, I didn't think the money was, too much for him at all. But again, he is retired now, so it makes sense in hindsight. But with that being said, I mean, a lot of Lions fans are obviously pissed off, but it's like we don't that's not our place, man. We don't run the team. You know what I mean? Like, we are just here watching football. And I get it. Everybody's pissed off because of the fact that we care about the team so much and we want them to win. And honestly, I think a lot of people do it because they're just over not having a Super Bowl. I think, honestly, it's like you've been a fan of a team for so long and they've never won a Super Bowl. So you're just kind of like, look, man, we're so fucking close. You better just get us there, bro. You know what I mean? But it's like, he's got us to where we're close. Let's chill out a little bit and realize this is the first time we've been close. Other than like Barry Sanders, and even then it was like I don't know if
To
we
be
still would have
fair,
won.
Even with Barry Sanders, I mean, he's won one playoff game to my knowledge in his career. Calvin won zero. It's like we're trying not to have a one and done year. And yes, I know a lot of Lions fans obviously were somewhat tied to Rams fans because of the Stafford trade. They made that one big trade and then instantly won the Super Bowl. But that's not how every big trade at the 10 line ever goes down. Like, we wouldn't have our team now. We wouldn't have Laporta and Gibbs and J-Mo and all them if this trade did not happen. So sometimes you need to push the chips all in, make that final push. It worked out for the Rams. It has not worked out for some other teams in the past. And that trade even benefited the Lions and built our future for, like I said, the next 4 or 5 years. Especially after extending these guys. I mean, in my opinion, the window's wide open. So it's one of those things where do you want us to play for them now? Do you want us to play the long game and just have a successful franchise? Usually, like I said before, we might have a chance every single year. Um, but either way, it is easier to go from bad to average or above average than it is to be good to elite. Like it takes a while to take that last step up, and I don't think the Lions are one move away to be honest. So I don't want to trade mortgage our entire future or two first-round picks, multiple future years for a chance at this year. More so than we already have.
Yeah, and I agree with that completely because it's just like, like you said, we wouldn't have these players if we made certain trades that guys have wanted to make throughout this process. If we went and got all the veterans and did all that, we might not even be as good as we are right now. And I mean, to their credit, the Rams have done a great job of rebuilding after doing a trade like that, where you're trading multiple, first round picks and you're going to get that quarterback. Not only did they win a Super Bowl, but right now, I mean, they're one of the better teams in the league, and I think a lot of people didn't expect that coming into the season. But I always thought, Jared Verse looks like he's going to be one of the best pass rushers in the league in the next few years. They've got a really solid interior defensive line core. They've done a good job of. Yep. They've done a good job of Byron Young and Kobe Turner as well. He's pretty fucking good. I mean, these guys are pretty damn good over there in LA.
And they hit on a late round receiver with Nakua, kind of like we did with St. Brown. So
exactly. And on top of that, also they hit on these late round defensive backs, or they add guys in free agency that might not have done a lot from where they were at, and they come in and I guess it's the perfect scheme for them, and they play a lot better. Good coaching, etc. But point being, LA showed a way that you can make those moves and still be good. However, there was a lot of luck that went into that. Of course, they had to get lucky with like Nakua in the fifth round pick, or in the fifth round, or guys like that, where they're just kind of finding these guys off the street that are playing really well. And obviously, you can kind of say the Lions had to get lucky too with drafting and things like that. But point being, we are in the place that we are at because we took that, angle. And now think about it this way. The Rams probably got 2 years left, if that, with Stafford. They are going to have to get a new quarterback very soon. They did that trade with Atlanta where they netted a first-round pick. Who knows if that's why they did that, because Atlanta's not that good this year, and they're going to probably have a top 10 or top 15 pick. They might be able to move up and get that quarterback and be smooth sailing. But if they don't, we got another pretty good team pretty good team with no quarterback, similar to how the New York Jets have been for about a decade. Just saying. And I also feel, to wrap it up here on this part, I also kind of feel like the Lions have been aggressive, but not in the ways that fans necessarily want us to be all the time. Like drafting Jahmyr Gibbs, drafting Jack Campbell. I mean, getting guys like that in the picks that we did was deemed aggressive at the time because a lot of people didn't necessarily see those guys going at those spots. Or I guess Jahmyr Gibbs maybe was in that spot, but not to us specifically. And we see how that, saw how that worked out. So,
yeah. I remember with that year, I really wanted Jalen Carter. I mean, obviously he came in with red flags and whatnot, but if he didn't have those, he would have been 1 or 2 overall. So I was hoping that we would take him to put next to Hutch, but at the same time, we traded back. We ended up with Gibbs and Laporta because of that. So, I mean, I can't complain.
And that's exactly how I'm feeling. It's like we can sit here and bitch and moan that we didn't win a Super Bowl the last 2 years, but I think we should be happy that we can bitch and moan about not winning a Super Bowl because we're supposed to. Like, that's where we're at right now. Like, if you asked, we've said this, I don't know how many times on this show, man. We have said this so many times. If you asked us 10 years ago, the Lions in 2023, I think was the first good year that we had, from 2023 to 2025, are only going to lose like 8 games. You'd be like, sign me up. I don't even give a shit what happens other than that. You know what I mean? You don't even have to ask any more questions. You're just like, all right, let's do it. Because we were so bad for so long. But that also plays into why people are so upset. But I think that should really register in our heads like, hey, man, we were so bad for so long. We can handle being pretty good for a couple more
Yeah,
years.
I feel like a lot of people forgot how bad we were before
Hmm.
Brad Holmes.
Yeah.
Like, hell, I didn't even wear the shirt for this occasion, but the I survived the drought 91 to 24. Like,
I love that.
that's how long we went between winning division titles. So, all of a sudden, and don't get me wrong, obviously the Super Bowl is the whole purpose of playing the sport. But let's just keep it real here. We went from in my youth, growing up, a 5 to 6 win season was thought of as a pretty solid year. We had the 3 and 13s as an average baseline of a season, and now, don't get me wrong, expectations are of course way higher. But a lot of Lions fans out there are just, in my opinion, acting spoiled. And yes, of course, we want to win more. Every team, all 32 teams want to, or every 30, all 32 teams fan bases would like to win more. I saw Jets fans on Twitter complaining about what they did today, even though I personally love what they did. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But it's obviously they're selling so that here and now is worse, of course. But it's just like when the Lions traded Stafford, we can circle back to that. And it's with those picks that we acquired that catapulted us into what we are today. And it's easily a top five team in the NFC. And like you mentioned, 5, 6 years ago, we would have begged for this. So I'm not upset.
No, and it's one of those things like we don't have to agree on everything, man. We can understand
Oh
that
yeah.
I would have done it differently maybe in certain things, you know what I mean? But I'm not in charge. So I'm just going to sit
Yeah.
here and hope and pray that Brad Holmes gets us to the point that we win a Super Bowl because guess what? Ain't shit else I can do but sit here and hope. And it's like I could get upset because we didn't. I mean, I spent 2 hours writing an article about offensive linemen, and spent another. I spent probably 6 hours total writing three different articles about different people we could trade for. I could sit here and be mad about it, like, damn it, I wasted my time and blah 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 blah. But that's fun to me. I enjoy doing those things. It's fun to sit there and speculate and think about different players that we could go get and what for what values and things like that. So it's like I enjoyed my time to do it, so why be upset about that? You know what I mean? And then it's like we could sit here and just piss and moan about, oh, this guy I wanted or this guy I wanted. And, oh, I remember back in the day, I say, before Brad Holmes,
You're
back
gonna
in the
mention
drought.
something like 5 years ago.
Yeah, literally, back in the drought, like you just mentioned, we would never draft anyone I wanted ever. There was literally not one time. Like I swear to God, I'd go into every draft with like 50 players that I'm like, I want the Lions to get one of these guys at some point tonight. Never got them ever. With Brad Holmes, however, there's been a lot of times where I'm like, man, I hope we get this guy, and he gets five of them, and it's like, okay, we're thinking the same way here. This makes sense. You know what I mean? So I think we as fans should look at those moments and just be like, look, I'm appreciative for what we have, and I don't want to sit here and bring negativity to it because there's really nothing we can do about it. You know what I mean? And I say that to tell all the viewers that are watching, calm down, brother. We got a season to go. We're only in week 9 right now. We got, what, 9 more? Yeah, 9 more freaking games left and playoffs and hopefully Super Bowl. We'll see what happens. I mean, if we somehow miss the playoffs, I could understand people being fucking upset, okay?
Yes, I would
But,
agree at that point.
but like we're not that's probably not going to happen. So, we're just going to keep this train rolling like Brad Holmes always says, and we're just going to keep pushing, all right? So, with that being said, we're going to wrap up the Lions segment because obviously nothing happened, and this is a trade deadline show, so not too much else to say about them at this point. We are still going to have our regular show tomorrow to talk about the game last week and the game next week. But with that being said, today was a wild day in the trade deadline or on the trade deadline date. I think there was 7 trades or 8 trades, which would be second or third or second most trades on a trade deadline day ever. I will say I don't remember a time that we saw so many big trades on a trade deadline day in the NFL. It kind of felt like an NBA trade deadline,
Yeah.
with how many big names were getting moved around. Obviously, you still hope there was a little couple more, moves in general, but can't complain too much. So just kind of going down the list here of what happened specifically today. The Ravens traded for Titans edge rusher Draymond Jones. They gave up a 2026 conditional fifth round pick, which the conditions I believe were if he has two sacks, and they make the playoffs, it'll be a fourth round, or at least two sacks, and they make the playoff, it'll be a fourth round pick. So if that both of those things don't happen, it's a fifth round pick. Kind of makes sense. I mean, I mentioned on the show I think he was worth a sixth, so the Titans actually get a little bit more than what I thought he was worth. But again, I like that trade for both teams. I do think Draymond Jones helps the Ravens a little bit more than he would have helped us just simply because of where he plays. Um, and then the Cowboys traded for Logan Wilson. They gave up a seventh round pick, which is, I mean, not a lot at all for a guy that of Logan Wilson's stature. That, I mean, 2 3 years ago was one of the best linebackers in football. Obviously, he's fallen off quite a bit. He was benched this year, but I think the Cowboys got a pretty good player there. And then last, before I hand it over to you, the Jaguars added wide receiver Jacoby Myers with Travis Hunter going down on IR. He should be back relatively soon, but they did place him on IR, so he's out for at least 4 weeks. And then Brian Thomas is having a bit of a down year. So they went ahead and added the Raiders receiver. They gave up a 2026 fourth and sixth round pick. So basically the value of a third, which a lot of teams today were asking for third round picks for, specifically receivers, which we'll get to in a little bit, a couple more of those guys. But Jacoby Myers goes for a fourth and a sixth because the team just said, look, man, we're not giving you a third. Nobody was going to give him a third. So they took the best offer that they could get. But with that being said, what are your thoughts on those three deals?
Well, I quickly wanted to double check just because I wanted to make sure. There. Um, the Myers to Jacksonville deal is the one that intrigues me the most, just because I feel like he's kind of the same type of receiver in uh, Brian Thomas Jr., who just got hurt. Obviously, Thomas Jr. is a tier above, but because he went down, you got a guy that has a, in my opinion, similar play style. And excuse me. Also, in my opinion, I don't think they gave up really too much for him. I want to kind of look at his contract. Does he have, is he under contract for after the season? If
I
so, then
believe
this might be
so.
a steal.
I don't think he's on a contract year.
Because I want to see, because if they can have next year all three of those, that's a hell of a receiving core.
Oh, he is in a contract year.
Okay, well, they at least they have the first to try to resign and whatnot. I doubt you're gonna take them, but those are your options. But yeah, I'm intrigued by the keeping all three of them for next year. Because I think that would give them a rather deep receiving core. And then in terms of for the now, they beat Kansas City, and like I said, with Brian Thomas Jr. going down for the year, they are.
Well, Brian Thomas isn't injured, but Travis Hunter's hurt, but he's not done for the season. He's not done for the season.
Travis Hunter's not?
No, he's only going to be out for probably 4 or 5 games.
My mistake. Okay, I had the wrong receiver hurt, but I thought it was season ending, so that's okay. So cool. I only have to wait a month to see what I want to see. My mistake on that. Thank you for correcting me. Wrong receiver and Jacksonville got hurt. But I'm sorry. What was the other two moves?
Draymond Jones to Baltimore and Logan Wilson to Dallas.
Logan Wilson to Dallas for only a seventh is something that surprised me. Like you said, he did get benched this year. His play is not as good as it used to be, but fairly recently he was a top 5 to 10 linebacker. So it's almost no risk for a potentially high reward if he can just get back to where he was. And who knows, sometimes you only need a change of scenery. And especially with him going to Dallas, excuse me, and I'm sure we'll mention Dallas's other moves, but they've been making some moves that shore up the middle of the defense. So with good game-changing D tackles, which they now have, makes the linebacker's life a lot easier. So maybe he can find his old rhythm again in Dallas. And even if he doesn't, you only gave up a seventh round pick.
Yeah, and I mean on top of that too, Dallas's linebackers are probably the worst part of their defense, honestly. A lot of people are like saying, "Oh, they shouldn't have traded for who they did because of they need more DB help." But I don't know, man. I think adding who they did and then with Logan Wilson as well, that's going to help because he's a cover linebacker, okay? So he's going to be able to cover the middle of the field for him pretty decently, and that should help everybody else because, like I said, their linebackers just have not been very good this season.
Yeah, and then Jones to Baltimore. That doesn't really move the needle for me, but that is a very typical Baltimore Ravens move. Late round pick for a vet where you kind of know what you're. Sorry, my dog just went crazy. You know what you're getting in them, like high floor, low ceiling. I mean, like I said, doesn't really move the needle for me on that particular deal.
Yeah, it's not a huge one. I think honestly, a lot of the reason that they did it is just because their run defense hasn't been great this year, and their best defensive lineman Matabike has been dealing with some injuries. So I like it for that reason. But kind of in the same boat with you, like it's not really a real big needle mover. With that being said, the Chicago Bears made a trade earlier today. They traded with the Cleveland Browns for edge rusher Joe Tryon Shoyinka. They gave up a seventh round, or I'm sorry, they gave up a sixth round pick for Shoyinka in a seventh. So solid trade for both teams, really. Cleveland doesn't really, I mean, need him that much. He's kind of just a depth guy. I think the Bears did this simply because Oda Yingbo got injured out for the year. So makes sense on that front for them. But they get a decent, depth guy for basically nothing. So kind of a C plus style of trade. Nothing really spectacular there. And then Seattle went and traded for a wide receiver, which kind of surprising at this point. But for what they traded for him, it's pretty good deal. They gave up a fourth and fifth round pick for Rashid Shaheed, who is having a pretty good year, 44 receptions, 499 yards. I was going to say 500, but let's be statistically accurate here. And then 2 touchdowns on the season. So he's having a pretty good season. He's a bit of a speedster. Should help them open up the field with JSN and Cooper Kupp. It was kind of what they were missing in that offense, I think. So this is pretty big for them for a team that's been. I mean, I don't know if they're really, how do I say this? I don't know if they're really as good as their record says, but so far they have been one of the better teams in the NFL. So, I mean, it's one of those things that, like, it makes sense for them not giving up too much. He is on a 1 year deal, but I could see them re signing him because think about it, man. Cooper Kupp is old. And he
Yeah.
you could cut him and probably keep Shaheed for about as much as Kupp was getting paid. So that makes a lot of sense in my opinion. Pairing JSN with Shaheed, they I think pair well, really well, or pair
Yeah.
together really well. And then of course Torrey Horton, who's a pretty good player as well, would be their third receiver. And I mean I think he had 2 touchdowns last week on Monday Night Football. So he's a pretty solid player. He's a rookie, but he's one of those guys that you can look forward to in the future. But with that being said, what are your thoughts on those two moves?
Um, the Bears getting Joe Tyron. I don't know how to say that last second hyphenated last name.
Shoyinka.
Sorry, Sharyinka. Okay. Like you said, kind of just it reminds me of the Baltimore Devontae Jones move. It doesn't really move the needle, but I see why they did it. They didn't give up too much. They got a little bit of pass rush help. They are excuse me. Uh, the Browns get a draft pick, and they already have their um, I hate to say multitude of pass rushers, but Myles Garrett and friends. Um, you gotta save a little just because it's Wayne Garrett. But once again, not a huge deal for me, but it's nothing that's gonna make me fear the Bears or anything like that.
Hmm.
Or when we have the Bears come to town or vice versa, I don't know which one happens first. He's not a guy circling or anything like that. But it's a depth move, so I mean, at least Ryan Poles, knows he has some holes and acquired someone to fill at least one of them without giving away too much draft capital. Moving to the Seahawks trade, I absolutely love it because I think Rashid Shaheed is exactly, as you mentioned, what Seattle's been missing from that offense. This will be their JMO, so to speak, if you only watch the Lions. This is their speed threat. And if you've watched any of the Seahawks teams this year, they've already had a really good passing attack. And they just got a little better. Maybe even a lot better. Shaheed's been having a pretty good year, as you mentioned. He's one of my guys that start every week in fantasy. He's been, I don't want to quite say carrying me, but he's had one or two weeks where he's absolutely blown up. And that's with the Saints offense. So put him on a team where he's not the best receiver. And don't get me wrong, I know Olave's still over there in Seattle as a Saint, but he's not what he used to be. I mean, let's just keep it real. And I disagree with you on Seattle. I feel like Seattle's a top 5 right now team in the league. I mean, maybe they'll cool off and whatnot, but right now they are red hot. They are outscoring anyone they go up against, and they are doing it offensively. And they just got one skin just a little bit better on offense. And if you put too much attention on JSN, then all of a sudden Rashid's going to be over the top. And they of course have that nice two-headed running back system like the Lions with Walker and Charbonnet. So I really like what they've done. I'm starting to get that echo thing again, so I'm going to drop joint back real quick.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you there, but I do think that the reason I say Seattle, it's similar to why I think the Colts I don't really believe in them yet. I just need to see a little bit more. Obviously, they added a new quarterback this offseason, so a little bit, I would say a lot of changes in Seattle this offseason. Actually, them trading DK Metcalf, kind of rebuilding their receiver core, somewhat rebuilding their offensive line. I just think it's one of those things, where, like I said, I just need to see a little bit more before I completely buy into like Seattle or Indianapolis or, any of these teams, like I said, that just did a lot of different stuff over the offseason and added a lot or hired a new coach. It's like, we've seen it before, we see it all the time recently, especially with quarterbacks, the sophomore slump. It's like they look really good right now, but we'll see what happens in the playoffs or like when a really good team comes to town or figures them out. I mean, we just saw it with the Lions against Minnesota. Nobody really saw that coming. And the Lions lost that game because Minnesota just kind of figured them out. Hopefully the Lions can adapt and change, to make the difference next week. So every team can't just do the same shit to us and win. But we've seen it happen before, like with Jared Goff and Sean McVay and the Rams. I mean, once the Patriots kind of showed how to figure them out, it was kind of over for him. I mean, as we saw, he got traded and they kind of blew it up. So with that being said, I just am not quite ready to buy into those teams because I need a bigger sample size, essentially. But with that being said, the last trade we will talk about before we get into the big moves of the day is the Chargers. Actually, there's two. Funny enough, they announced another trade at 5 p.m., so technically past the trade deadline. But it was in the memo that I don't know. Excuse me. It was in the memo, but nobody tweeted it. So it's kind of funny. It was still legal, but nobody tweeted it, so nobody heard about it. Which the Chargers
to me then.
The Chargers traded. It's nothing anybody cares about, to be honest with you. The Chargers traded for Trevor Penning. They gave up a 6th round pick for him. Well, that's the one we already knew about. And then the new one is they traded a 7th round pick. Or I'm sorry, they traded DB Jazir Taylor for a 7th round pick from the Jets. So that's the one that was technically legal, but past the deadline for us tweeters, I guess you could say.
So the Jets are buying and selling.
Sorta, I guess. They sold a seventh round pick for a defensive back. Uh, I don't really know too much about the guy, to be honest with you. So, um, with that being said, though, there was two absolute blockbusters today. Okay, and they happened pretty much back to back. Was a wild trade deadline day, specifically because of these two trades. Now, we're gonna go in order of how blockbustery they were, I guess you can say. With the first one being Cowboys traded to go get Quinnen Williams. So, kind of prefacing this move, they traded Micah Parsons to Green Bay in return for two first round picks and defensive tackle Kenny Clark, which people were, I would say, lukewarm about. It was one of those picks where, or trades where it kind of makes sense for both sides, but at the same time, you're just like, why would you trade a guy that good, right? Well, then they turn around and they trade for defensive tackle Quinnen Williams at the deadline, and he is an all-pro, top 5 defensive tackle for the past few years. Yeah, he got paid, but it's nothing insane like $47 million that Micah Parsons is getting. So they essentially traded they traded a first round pick, a 2027 first round pick and a 2026 second round pick to the Jets for Quinnen Williams. They also traded Mozzie Smith within that trade, who is or it was a former, who I guess is still a former first round pick. So I think the Jets did a good job here. They traded away a guy who is, yes, 27 years old, and like I said, top 5 defensive tackle in the NFL. However, he's probably going to be 30 by the time you're doing anything. Let's be realistic here. And he's one of those guys that in 2 years, he's going to want a new deal. Even though he's got a year or two left on his deal, he's going to be like, look, man, 28 million ain't enough for me no more. These guys are making 50. See what I'm saying? So it's going to be like, what are we going to do here? The Jets made a good move. They traded not even an aging. They traded a in his prime defensive tackle, but they got a first and second round pick. Now, the Jets now have 3 first round picks in 2027 alone, and 2027 is said to be one of the best drafts we've seen in recent memory, if not ever, in terms of how many blue chip prospects there is in it. And obviously, a lot of things can change in a year and a half still that we have before that happens. But
Brad Kaya.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, great point. I mean, even this draft coming into last year's
Arch
draft,
Manning.
or Garrett Nussmeier. I mean, think
There you
about it,
go.
man.
Yeah.
It's
The
like,
guys who were perceived as the next big thing, and then they go in round 7. Brad Kaya,
yeah,
for example.
Quinn Ewers is a
Yep,
perfect example of that
Yep.
because he's one of those guys that everybody thought was a top 5 pick, and then he literally was a 7th round pick. And point being, the Jets did a really good job on this deadline as a whole, which we'll get to their other move in a second. But this move specifically was really smart for them, and I also like it for the Cowboys. That's why I prefaced it with the Micah Parsons thing, because look, man, they went and got one of their guys that now you're looking at it, like you mentioned with Logan Wilson, he makes the rest of the defense better. Their run defense is going to be ridiculous now with him and Kenny Clark in the middle. And they also have pretty decent edge rushers, nothing insane, but now they're going to play a little bit better because Quinnen Williams is in the middle. And then the linebackers are going to play a little bit better and so on and so forth. So I think it makes a lot of sense for the Cowboys, especially when you pair it with the Parsons trade. Now, I also love the deal simply because of the money saved. They're saving like $20 million per year by doing it this way. They saved 47 before this, but now with trading for Quinnen Williams, they have a stout defensive line, and they still have extra picks, and they're saving $20 million at the end of the day. So I really like it for both sides. What are your thoughts on this deal?
As you mentioned, I like it for both sides, but I do like it for the Jets far more. If you follow me on X, I said it, and if not, I'll just say it here for whoever's here live with us or watching this later on. In my opinion, I've never really sat here at a deadline and declared a selling team a winner. I think the Jets, obviously we're talking about half the move right now, but in totality, this is half of what they've did. They acquired so many picks for players that I don't want to say don't matter because it's a prime top 5 D tackle and a prime corner, which we'll get on. But by the time that they are going to be competitive again as a whole, and by the time they get to use these picks, by the time they get this thing rolling, those two players they traded would either be at the tail end of their primes or past their primes. So I know they traded away a lot today, but when it comes to their future and the 5-year plan, so to speak, they essentially traded away nothing because they're not competing with those guys right here and today. They have Sauce, and they have Quentin Mitchell. I'm sorry, not Quentin Mitchell. Quentin Williams. And they weren't winning. They're like, what, 1-8?
Yeah, 1-7, 1-8, something like that.
Yeah. So they're not winning with them. So at least this, because they are your best two players, at least you now have a massive pool of, I guess I would say prospect / lottery picks, so to speak. And hopefully with Aaron Glenn, as long as he gets a long enough leash to be a part of these picks, it reminds me a ton of the Lions doing the Stafford deal.
Mm-hmm.
They came in here, the new regime. We traded away our best players, our face of the franchise. We got 2 extra firsts. And then you can trade those picks for more firsts, just like we traded back. Yada, yada, yada. But everything that we've built right now for the Lions, our entire core, is based off that Stafford trade.
Yep.
This is the Jets Stafford trade.
I was thinking the exact same thing, honestly, and I'm glad you said it because I was going to say it if you didn't. It's one of those things that, like, it's almost like Aaron Glenn went to New York and was like, hey, guys, so this is what we did when we were in Detroit, and it worked out so well. We should do the same thing. Like, we should just do the same shit. And he was like, even look at it this way. We have 2 of them. We're going to trade it. We're going to do the trade twice. Because we have Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner, which another thing that I think the Jets did a really good job at within this Quinnen Williams deal was they got the better of the Packers Cowboys firsts in 2027. Not only did they get a 2026 second round pick, they got a 27 first, and it's optional to be the better pick of the two, Green Bay or Dallas, which kind of crazy in my opinion, but I kind of get, I mean, I get it from New York's perspective, but I also kind of get it from Dallas because it's like realistically, they're both probably going to be in the late teens to early 20s at best, if not worse than that, because I think the Cowboys and Packers both are pretty good teams. So, and then of course the Jets also got Mozzie Smith in this deal, who is a former first round pick defensive tackle who seemed to not really get on in Dallas, which I can tell you. And I have good sources on this, so you don't have to believe me, but I have really good sources on this. Mozzie Smith was not really enjoying his time in Dallas. It seemed like they were trying to make him a player that he wasn't necessarily. They were trying to get him to play a way that he didn't. That comes with they were trying to get him to lose a lot of weight. They want him to be more of like a three tech type guy rather than a one tech, which Mozzie was, a one tech in college. So I think he's really happy to get out of there, and I think he might play pretty well for the Jets, which is why I say all of that. I think Mozzie Smith's actually going to surprise some people for the Jets because I think he has the physical tools for sure.
Absolutely. He was a beast in college for Michigan. There's a reason he was a first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to compare it to the Detroit trade, he's kind of like the Goff, where some people thought he was a throw in, and guess what? He's a pretty important part of what we currently have. So
Mm-hmm.
if he turns it around, like you mentioned, or if he doesn't, you at least still got the picks, but I would not be surprised if he does at least at minimum because of average starter.
Yeah. He's going to be, I think he's going to at least be serviceable for them, if not pretty freaking good. Obviously, he's not going to be Quinnen Williams. That's not what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
But he's going to be a pretty good player for him. But with that being said, the second move that they made, which was easily the biggest move of the day, they traded Sauce Gardner, the lockdown cornerback, to the Indianapolis Colts for 2 first-round picks, one in 2026, one in 2027. So now the Jets have 2 first-round picks in 2026, 2 second-round picks in 2027. Or I'm sorry, in 2026.
Yep.
3 first-round picks in 2027. That's an insane haul of draft picks to rebuild this team. Obviously, they're going to have to hit because, they suck now because their best two players are gone. Um, but that's a really, really nice, handful of darts to throw at that board,
Oh,
especially when you,
absolutely.
you factor in, I mean, they got the better of the two 2027 first round picks from Dallas. Um, they also got the Colts first round picks the next 2 years, which look, obviously their pick this year is not going to be very low. Or I'm sorry, it's not going to be very high because they're pretty good this year. Next year, though, I mean, dude, they just kind of strapped themselves to Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
They literally just gave Daniel. They basically said, "Hey, Daniel Jones's agent, you have the leverage, sir. You're going to take whatever you want from us because we essentially have to re-sign Daniel Jones. There's no other option. They can't go into contract negotiations and say, well, we got our first round picks. We might be able to trade up for a quarterback or draft one. They don't have that anymore. So they are basically tied to Daniel Jones now, which I personally don't love. I don't think it's that smart. I don't love the trade for the Colts at all, really. Giving up 2 first round picks for a corner. I just don't. I don't love it, man. And I also feel like Sauce is a little overrated. Don't get me wrong; he's a good corner, but he's not like after his rookie year, he's kind of fallen off a little bit. I'm just going to be honest with you here, okay? He's not a top five corner right now. He just isn't. 2 first round picks for him is kind of
I'd say
nuts.
top 10 though.
Yeah, he's top 10, but that's what I mean. People were talking about him like the best corner in football during his rookie year, which he probably was. He was probably up there. And then he's kind of taken a little bit of a step back the last 2 years, which top 10 still pretty damn good, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But if we're talking, can I go get a top 30 corner for a sixth or a fifth versus a top 10 corner for 2 first round picks? I mean, come on, let's be real. It's like you're going to take the top 30 corner because you already have pretty good cornerbacks over there. Travarius Ward was lost to a stupid concussion. So, I mean, did you see that video?
I did. I did. I'm
Oh
trying
my
not to laugh
lord.
because I never want to laugh when someone gets hurt. But it
Yeah.
is just such a boneheaded, like,
Like,
what are you
dude,
guys doing?
it was like I was watching fucking freshman football out there, and these kid it's like a kid running around like, oh, I'm gonna go intercept it, and then he just fucking nails his teammate because he doesn't understand what he's doing. Like, point being, Charvarius Ward will be back at some point this year. So I just feel like trading for a guy like Sauce, don't get me wrong, a good player. I don't know how much sense it makes for the Colts at this point to give up 2 first round picks because not only did they give up two firsts, they also just tied themselves, like I said, to Daniel Jones for the next 5 years probably. And obviously they still have Anthony Richardson, but I think that ship has sailed, guys. I mean,
Oh yeah.
they benched him. He's their backup now. He's not really the guy there. So I don't know. I don't really get it from the Colts' perspective. Obviously, they're going all in, but a corner, I don't know, man. It's not Jalen Ramsey. You know what I mean? When he was traded to the Rams, like I understood that trade because it's like, oh, he's the best corner in football. Pat Surtain, I can
Yeah.
understand 2 first round picks for him, but Sauce,
I'd give
it's
up two
like
first for him.
yeah, it's like, but Sauce, it's like, man, maybe a first and a third, maybe. But even then, that's like, seems like a lot. But back to your point, with the Jets, they're the winners of the day by far. They blew it up. They just said, you know what? We're going to get all the ammunition we can possibly hold. We can get as much as you can carry, boys, because we're going riding. We're going out here tonight because we're going to get some talent. So as a Jets fan, or I'm sorry, if you are a Jets fan, don't feel bad. Yeah, your team's going to suck for a year or two, but you'll be all right because guess what? As a Lions fan that's been through it, you guys might end up better than we did because you got so much more draft capital.
Yeah.
But with that being said, what are your thoughts on the Sauce Gardner deal?
As I touched on when we talked about the Williams deal, I think it's a great day to be a Jets fan. And as you mentioned, it's waving the right flag unconditionally for this year. But you have so many picks, so much potential, so much, I guess I'll call it off-season fuel. Imagine doing mock drafts with three first-round picks. and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying let's make a trade because it makes the offseason more fun, but it's a long-term move, as I touched on before, comparing it to the Lions. Just between 2026 and 2027, the Jets now have 5 first-round picks in 2 years. That is a quick way to turn around your franchise. In addition to the additional second-round pick they have this year. So they
Yeah.
have 5 first and 3 seconds over the next 2 years.
And
that's
think
just
about all the
current.
money. Think about all the money that they got rid of too. It's like you probably. I mean, Sauce was getting what almost 30 million a year, and then Quinnen Williams is getting almost 30 million a year. So you just shed 50 million a year, straight up, just gone. And you got all those picks. I mean, come on, dude. It's like I honestly, some people might hate me for saying this. Okay, this is how I play Madden. This is what you do on Madden, and it's always worked out for me. Okay, I understand you can't go in and just trade everybody. I get that, but I think GMs should start taking this this angle a little bit more. Right, like now thinking about it, I'm like, man, I kind of wish Brad Holmes would have traded more of our guys away back then. You know, it's like
Oh,
a
back
couple
then,
of
yes.
yeah, it's like back then it's like there's a couple guys that we just don't have anymore for whatever reason. We let them walk or whatever the case, and it's like, man, I wish we would have just traded his ass and just got a 5th round pick or whatever the case because Brad Holmes showed that he can do he's a magician in the freaking late rounds and he just finds guys. So it's like if we just had more darts for the dartboard, I would have loved that. But point is, Jets fans, you guys should be happy. Very,
Absolutely.
very happy knowing that the guy that you have GMing your team right now seems to know what he's doing. And as long as he can draft, which we'll see about this year's draft. The jury's still out in its entirety. I think on this draft, obviously, you can come to some conclusions in 9 games, but we don't know enough to really say anything about this draft class. But we'll see how it goes over the next few years. But I do think it's looking up for the New York Jets.
And they kept some of their pieces too. They still have Brees Hall and they still have Garrett Wilson and plus all these picks. So they didn't trade away everyone. So they have a large amount of picks to build on the future and still a couple building blocks there to, have your base there. So yeah, if I was a Jets fan, I know it sucks. We've been there. I know it's at this point in time a little unnerving when someone says, "Hey, I know it sucks now, but 2, 3 years from now you might be better than you have been in 20 years." But that might be the case.
Honestly, like you Lions fans, you guys might call me crazy for this. I think the Jets are in so much better position than we were back then. We kind of got lucky with Goff specifically because they need a quarterback, and we never needed one throughout the process because we got Goff in that deal, and he ended up playing way better than anyone thought he would. Um, but like they probably have more building blocks than we did at that point. I mean, think about it, dude. There's like Taylor Decker is literally the only player left from those like Matt Patricia days. The only player left on this entire football team. The Jets, they're going to carry over, like you just said, Garrett Wilson, possibly Brees Hall. We'll see if they resign him.
Yeah.
But there's a couple guys on defense they're going to bring over too. And they have more picks than we did. So it's like, obviously they might not do better than us in the long run with, how many picks we hit on, but they have so much more potential right now today than the Detroit Lions did in, 2019 when we made that deal.
And if they choose not to re-sign Brees Hall, then they can still get a 4th or 5th, maybe even a 3rd round comp pick. So they can still add more fuel to their picks and whatnot. And just to have local ties to you, I guess I'll say, this is kind of the way, even though it's a different sport, that OKC built their team. Just picks on picks on picks. And obviously it's a different sport, but that's how you get better. You have to hit on some of these picks. And you're not going to hit on 100% of them. No one does. But as long as you hit on more than you miss, they'll be fine. And I hope they do this well, and I really actually hope they have success, just because I still like AG and I wish the best for him. I would love a Jets-Lions Super Bowl here within the next 2 years. I want to see the Dan Campbell coaching tree take off, except for Ben Johnson, just because he stays in the division. So if he went somewhere else, I wish him the best too. Hopefully his next job he blows up.
Yeah, and that's definitely another positive as a Lions fan watching this happen for the Jets is also knowing Aaron Glenn is attached to it. But also, honestly, when I saw them trade Sauce Gardner, the first thought that popped in my head was that means they think Aaron Glenn's their guy. They would not do this if they didn't think Aaron Glenn was their guy. They're not going to go fight or trade all these guys and then try to find a head coach. You know what I mean? Like they know Aaron Glenn is their guy and they're following what he thinks is the right way to do things too. So that was a really, really nice thing. Before we get out of here, we're going to go over a little bit of the rumors of the day, just real quick, because a lot of things didn't happen that we thought would. First of all, the Cowboys trading for an edge rusher. Okay, it didn't happen. Sort of happened. They traded for an interior rusher, so they kind of got what they wanted there. But specifically the Dolphins, Bradley Chubb was a guy that a lot of people linked to a lot of different teams, and he didn't even get traded. That's one of those moves that I understand because it's like, look, man, Miami sucks. We know that, right? Bradley Chubb, though, is a pretty solid player, but they're paying him a shit ton of money. However, with the way his deal is structured, it's a little bit easier to get out of that deal financially next season. So I think he's traded. I just don't think it happens this year. And I think it's because they're looking like, man, is it worth 30 million? Because I mean, they have to pay the guarantees of his contract when they trade him. So he's due like 30. It's like 31 million for the next or something like that for the next 3 straight years. Now, if the team that traded for him would only have to pay 20 million a year. So that means the Dolphins would have had to straight up just absorb probably about 30-40 million dollars for a 5th round pick. It's like, look, let's just play him for another year, pay him what we signed him for, and have him do what he came here for. And then next year we'll trade him and only have to pay 10 million for a 5th round pick. I think that was kind of their way of thinking. So that makes sense why he wasn't moved. Jalen Waddle as well makes sense why he wasn't moved. Similar to Garrett Wilson, that guy's a building block. They weren't going to move him for anything less.
Especially with Tyreek Hill's health and whatever else is going on. So.
Yeah. And they were asking for a first and more, which is acceptable, especially when you think that Miami traded up and took Jalen Waddle over Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell. Just saying. They probably...
He went before Chase?
Yeah. He went the pick, I believe, because there was the Bengals went right before we did, right? Or was it the Dolphins?
Let me look this up.
Because I'm pretty sure it went Waddle, Chase, Sewell, because I thought once the Bengals didn't take him, we were like...
5th.
Okay, so he was directly before Sewell, because Sewell went 6th.
Sewell was 7th, wasn't he?
Oh, okay.
Hang on, pulling it up now.
I mean, that would make a lot of sense, I think.
Yeah, Sewell went 7th, Waddle went 6th, Chase went 5.
Okay,
so it's Chase, Waddle, Sewell.
Okay. So, but either way, with that being said, they traded up to get him and took him over a guy like Sewell. So it's one of those things, like, you don't really want to let that guy go. I mean, he is a pretty good player, too, don't get me wrong, but I think that also factors into we don't want to just trade him. But with that being said, I'm also kind of surprised the Titans didn't really make any moves other than Draymond Jones. There was a couple guys like Arden Key that we thought they did trade Roger McCreary, so I guess that kind of counts, even though it didn't happen today. Another team that just we thought was going to completely blow it up and didn't. It's funny, the teams that we thought was going to completely blow it up and didn't. There was teams that we thought would blow it up and they didn't, and then the team that we didn't think would blow it up was the Jets, and they completely blew that shit up. They just said, boop, we're pressing the button, baby. So kind of a fun day for that. Outside of that, Tariq Woolen, of course, was kind of talked about in trade talks, but didn't end up getting traded. I think that makes a lot of sense. Because, as we talked about, he's young, he's got a lot of potential. He probably shouldn't get a huge deal this year just based on how he's played. But I understand them keeping him. And then the thing we left out about the Colts deal, they also traded Adonai Mitchell in that deal, which the Jets just got themselves a former first-round pick wide receiver. So that's 2 former first-round picks at 2 impact positions. So I think that helps the Jets out even more.
Yeah. Absolutely, I forgot about him, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
And
Yeah, to have him
then
be thrown in with those picks, that's not bad at all.
no.
And then one thing I wanted to touch on, just because it's in front of me, slightly off topic, forgive me, but since I looked up um, where Waddle and Chase went in this draft, second and third overall that year were Zach Wilson and Trey Lance.
Yep.
So just a quick PTA announcement. Quit reaching on quarterbacks, people. Guys drafted after Zach Wilson and Trey Lance. Jamar Chase, Penei Sewell, Jace Horn, Patrick Surtain, Micah Parsons, Rashawn Slater. Like, you want a great D end, a great tackle, a great corner, great receivers, but no, you guys went for Trey Lance and Zach Wilson. But hopefully the
Yep.
Jets are in a better direction now with their picks.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things where people get too caught up in we need a good quarterback first. Build your team. The quarterback, I'm not going to say it's definitely going to come, but it's probably, if you wait long enough, somebody will be in free agency, like an Aaron Rodgers, that you can at least have for a season to make you pretty good, or you might find somebody in the draft. I mean, I just think the more darts you throw at any position, the better. So I don't, unless that you think that guy is literally a game changer, elite quarterback prospect, I'm not trading up for him. That's just what I think. If he's there when I'm there, I might take a flyer on a quarterback in the top 10. I ain't trading up for him, though. So guys like Trey Lance and Zach Wilson at that time, I know Zach Wilson was seen as more of like a quote-unquote can't-miss prospect, but Trey Lance was a definite project. So the 49ers trading for 3 firsts to go get him is kind of crazy in hindsight. And I think a lot of teams have kind of changed the way they think about positional value in a lot of ways like that because, we've seen it in years past. Quarterback's number one. You got to get the quarterback first. But we've seen it recently where it's like maybe we can wait on the quarterback and build the rest of the team first. And like you said, think about, those two teams. If they would have taken a Jamar Chase or a Penei Sewell, who knows where they're at.
Yeah, like you
Right
at
now.
least get a building block. Like obviously quarterback's important. No one is going to tell you it's not. But if that person's not there, and we've seen it so many times, just add your building block, add your Chase or your Sewell, etc. And at least you have someone you can rest your hat on. And if you do that year in and year out, it's going to splotch them around the field, and eventually you have a whole team of talented players. So
Yeah.
it's those exact reasons that I get excited about teams like the Jets when they acquire all these picks.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like with the Lions specifically. We we saw him do a splashy move with Jamison Williams, but for the most part, he just kind of takes what's there. What's the best player available? Jahmyr Gibbs. Most people said, we didn't really need a running back. I think that was not a great pick. Come to find out, we needed that running back, and it was a great pick. So I think it's one of those things where positional value is sort of getting lost in a good way because it's like, guys, we just need good football players. The rest will come. We just need to get the best player, and it doesn't really matter what we have right now. I mean, I guess if you're, a quarterback away from a Super Bowl, you're going to be a little bit more aggressive. But when you're rebuilding like the Lions or the Jets right now, there's no reason. Just take the best player. But with that being said, that'll do it for this one. We appreciate you guys for watching as always. We will be back tomorrow at the same time, 4:30 p.m. to do our Lions, Michigan, and Michigan State conversation. But it's the NFL trade deadline, so we figured why not hop on here and have a bit of a conversation. With that being said, you know what to do. If Quinnen Williams, or I'm sorry, if you are a Quinnen Williams Cowboys fan, or if you are a Sauce Gardner Colts fan, go get you a Sauce Gardner Colts jersey on Fanatics. I bet you they already have them up. It probably not on sale because obvious reasons.
Oh, heck no.
But there's some other stuff that probably is. So link is in the description. Check out Fanatics for all your sport needs. Now, with that being said, we will see you guys tomorrow. We appreciate you guys for watching. You can find me at JSoSweet, him at Gullet_James. I almost said it the wrong way. And both of us at MIFB Network and MichiganFootballNetwork.com. Once again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.